Hello, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Today we have an all new review and try on of the new Makeup Forever HD Skin Blush and Glow palette. So this is their holiday release for 2024, so I'm very excited to get into this one. I did review their Face Essentials cream palette back in the summer and it was phenomenal, so I could not pass up the chance to review this one as well. So this is currently available at Sephora. This retails for $88 US or 119 Canadian. However, Makeup Forever is having a sale on their website right now and you can get 25% off. I do believe this is included, so I will leave that link down below and the code if you need one. But this is the new Blush and Glow palette. So this palette is entirely cream blushes and highlighters. This is made in Japan. It doesn't say anything about the shelf life, but I imagine it's not as long just given that it's all cream products. So it does just come in this cute little box here, and this is actually just a sleeve. So if you push from the bottom, the actual box will come out and it just looks like this, and it does have the shades on the back here as well. So this is what the inner palette looks like, very, very much like the Face Essentials palette. It does come in this tin packaging and it does have a clasp here on the side. You just push this in and it opens like so. So this is what the palette looks like. So on this side we have the blushes, over here we have the highlights. Some of the highlighters are actually going to be pretty nice blushes for me as well. I think I have already swatched these, and from what I can tell, it looks like the highlighters that are going to pair best with the blush are kind of set up so that they kind of face each other when the palette is closed. So this blush will pair beautifully with this highlight, this blush and this highlight kind of thing. You obviously can do whatever you want, but that is what I noticed when I was looking at this and when I did my swatches. Now let's go through the swatches really quickly. So I'm going to go left to right on each side, and I did start with the blush side of the palette. So first we have shade 202, and this is a semi-matte cool pink. Then we have shade 300, which is a shimmering warm pink. Shade 220 is a semi-matte berry. Shade 310 is a semi-matte coral. Shade 222 is a semi-matte plum. Shade 322 is a shimmering vibrant orange. Moving over to the highlighter side of the palette, shade 118 is a shimmering warm coral. Shade 112 is a shimmering pink gold. Shade 116 is a shimmering peach. Shade 110 is a shimmering ivory. Shade 114 is a shimmering gold, and shade 100 is a shimmering pearl. So all of these shades do look really, really beautiful. They did only come out with one palette, so I am happy to see that we do have some much deeper options in here as well. And so from my experience with this formula, these are also buildable. So you will definitely be able to sort of customize the look. They are also a more oil-based formula, so there is a lot of slip to them, but they are just very beautiful and easy to work with. So I do want to do cheek swatches of the blushes so you can see what each of them looks like. And then I've been trying to figure out ever since I ordered this palette how best to show you the highlights. And I think I will just show you each blush, and then I think I'll show you the highlight that I think looks best with it. So I'm kind of doing both at the same time, if that makes sense. But let's just get into it. Let's start putting some of these on the face. So I think for all of these blushes, I'm going to use my BK Beauty 109 brush. This is just my favorite for any type of cream blush. I kind of want one of these for cream bronzer as well. So I'm going into that first shade right here, just loading up the brush. And this, like I said, it's not necessarily creamy. It definitely feels a little bit more on the oily side, and it is definitely a more sheer formula. So it's definitely one that you can customize quite easily. So this, like I said, is that cool pink. So you can see how it is sheer, but it is building for me as well. I do not have any powder on my face. I also don't have any bronzer whatsoever. And I've just got the Fenty foundation stick on underneath. So I think that actually gave me a really pretty blush. I love that. I do want to try to build it up just a little bit more so you can see the shade a bit better, but I really, really love how light and kind of natural it looks. But again, I do want to show you, I do really want to show you the shade, and I want to show you how you can really build these up to be more customizable. So that's really pretty. That is a beautiful, beautiful blush shade. I think that's so, so, so pretty. Definitely not with today's eye look, but I do think that is so pretty. So just quickly cleaning off the brush. I do really, really enjoy this blush formula. I've used it quite a few times from my Face Essentials palette. Going into this next blush shade over here, I'm loading up that brush again. This is more of a shimmering shade. So like I said, I love the Face Essentials palette because that one has your foundation, concealer. You can use some of the shades for bronzer, contour. You get your blush, you get your highlights, you get everything in there. And that one has been so wonderful to reach for whenever I'm in a hurry and I just need something really, really quick so I can get out the door. It has been so wonderful. And I do appreciate more cream products in the winter. I know a lot of people go for their cream products in the summer, but I like them in the winter because I do have very dry skin. So my skin really appreciates the extra love and hydration in the winter time. Okay, so this shade is also looking very, very beautiful. It does say that it is a shimmering blush. I think what that means is it's just a little bit glowier than the other one. So this is like a semi-matte. So I think what they mean by that is that it's just going to sort of mimic the finish of the foundation underneath. This one is kind of similar. They have a similar finish, but I do think this one is definitely glowier. So we have shade 202 and shade 300. I think they're both really, really pretty. I can see myself going for this one just a little bit more, just because it's a little more toned down, but I really, really liked this one before I even built up the shade. Okay, let's try on these highlighters as well. I do like to apply these highlighters with a finger. I'm gonna grab this first shade right here, and I think I said this would be best over this blush, and it's honestly just looking a lot like the blush, to be honest with you. So this highlight shade is definitely going to be more of a blush for me. So that highlight shade is actually really more of a blush for me. That is what I would call a more shimmery, glowy blush. I think it's pretty, but like I said, definitely too deep to be just a highlighter for me. But definitely looks like a nice extension of my blush, so I can definitely get some use out of it that way. So let's go into the highlighter in shade 112, and we'll put that one on this side. I think this is going to be a much easier one for me to work with. This also has a pinky hue to it. Okay, so now we have that first blush with that second highlight, and I do think that highlighter is definitely a little bit more subtle. This one does have a pinky hue to it, so I do think I could get away with using it as more of a blush topper. I think that would be pretty. It definitely added quite a lot of glow. So I do think these first two highlighters are definitely going to end up being blush toppers for me. The second one was definitely lighter, but they both have a pinky hue to it, and they're both a little bit too deep for my very fair skin. So these are going to be used as blush toppers for me for sure. I do think they're very pretty. Let's get into the next set of shades. Okay, so getting into the first berry shade of the palette, I am just cleaning my brush off between each one as well. Oh, this shade actually is really, really pretty. It's far less intimidating than I expected. Okay, so I just built that up a little bit so you can see it, but I actually think that is a really, really pretty shade. That's not nearly as intense as I was expecting. You could definitely build this one to get a lot more pigment, but I love how that actually really does work for me when I went in with that lighter hand. So I do think that's a really pretty blush as well. Moving into that coral shade on right next to it. This is shade 310. And I love how we have a good mix of more fall shades, but we also have a lot of really great summer shades. So this is a palette that is going to be wonderful all year long. It's not just catering to a certain type of year or to the time of year that it was released, which is kind of nice. That's a beautiful shade too, actually. Just want to add a little bit more just because it is on the lighter side. These are very, very buildable blushes. So I do think if you have a deeper skin tone, you will definitely be able to build these up. And that really is what I'm looking for some of these deeper shades, because I really want to know if they only created one palette, so are we getting a range for different skin tones? So we have the berry shade over here, and then over here we have that coral, which is very pretty. So let's top them with these highlighters. I'm gonna start with this one right here over top of that more coral blush. I do think this is going to be more of a topper shade for me as well, but yeah, so definitely still going to be a topper. I think it'll be a really pretty topper for this blush in particular. Definitely doesn't necessarily work for me as just a highlight. So it definitely has a beautiful glow to it, looks very pretty, but again, really more of a blush topper for my skin tone. Going into the highlighter right next door, and I think this one might actually work well for my skin tone. So going over that berry shade. Yeah, that's much better. For me anyway. Okay, so that shade is definitely a much better highlight shade for my skin tone. This one over here is definitely going to be more of a topper. I did expect that. Like I said, I really only expect these two highlighters to work for my skin tone. So that's totally okay, but I just want to show you what they look like used as highlighters. So you can kind of see the shades. I know the highlights are really hard to see, but I really want to show you anyway. Okay, let's get into the last two sets. Okay, so let's get into this last set of shades. These are two that I don't think I'm gonna love on my skin tone, but I really want to show you what they look like anyway. And also just the way this formula is so customizable, I think I might actually make it work. So we are going into that plum shade. I am going to tap a little bit off, but I don't think I actually own any purple tone blushes. Okay, so just like the other ones, it is definitely very sheer, but again, very, very buildable. So you can really just keep building this to get the pigment level that you want. All right, that is that plum blush. I still don't think it's a favorite shade on me. Personally, on a deeper skin tone, that plum shade will look fantastic, I think. And again, you can build it so that it is a lot more intense and a lot more pigmented. But this is how it looks on my skin when I go in with a lighter hand. I do think it is actually quite a nice blush. Okay, let's go into that orange for the last shade. I have a blush from Pat McGrath that I thought was going to be orange, and it's really not. So I'm not 100% sure how this one is going to fare. I was wanting to try an orange blush this summer just to see what it looks like. I don't think it's going to be for me, but at least I'll know. So this is also a shimmery shade as well. It's supposed to be quite glowy. So like I said, you can sheer these out and get a really light wash of color. If you're as fair as I am, that can often be the preference. But you can also just really build it up to get a much more intensely pigmented payoff. And they also do wear quite long on the face for a more oil-based formula. I never expect them to wear all day, and then they do, and I'm always impressed. So I really do enjoy this formula. I don't think I like a orange blush on myself. I just don't. I had hoped it would give me sort of like a extra bronzy look, but I think it just makes me look a little jaundiced, if I'm being honest. So I'm going to pick up this highlighter right here, and I'm going to try that on over the blush. This is described as more of a gold. It does look super nice with that orange blush, and you can get quite a glow from these cream highlighters. I actually really do like the way that orange blush and that cream highlight look together though. That orange blush is going to be so beautiful on much deeper skin tones. Okay, going into that beautiful pearly white highlight for the other side, and I think I'm going to like this one quite a bit. And this one is definitely kind of icy and just adds a bit of sparkle. See, that's really pretty. I really do like that highlighter. I had a feeling that would be the favorite. It is sparkly though, so just keep that in mind. It does seem to have some shimmer particles to it. So over here we have the plum blush and that super icy highlight. And then over here we have the orange blush with the gold highlight. So both of these blushes I think are going to be gorgeous on deeper skin tones, especially when you build them up. Let me go back into that plum shade because I'm about to take this off. So you can see I've made that plum shade work for my particular skin tone, but taking a little bit more, I just really want to show you how you can really, really build this. So, I mean, obviously this is not for me, but look at how easily you can build that to get more pigment if you have a deeper skin tone or if you just want a more intense blush. So you really can customize these so easily. Okay, let me pop off camera. I'm going to take these off. I'm going to even out my blush and I will come back to share my final thoughts. All right, so here is the finished look. And I actually just went in with this berry shade and then I topped it with that icy white. That will probably be my most used highlighter in this palette. So I think this palette is so beautiful. I always love the Makeup Forever face palettes because they're just so high quality. I do think this is fantastic if you are a working makeup artist and you need a range of shades, and this is probably one of the very best cream formulas in my opinion, just because of how customizable it is. It starts out so sheer, so any shade can work even on my very fair skin, but you can also just build them up so well that they can work for a range of skin tones. So I think that's impressive, especially when you have something like this that there's only one palette but it needs to cover a range. I think these shades are beautiful. Does every single shade work for me? No, absolutely not. A lot of these highlighters really aren't going to be for me. A lot of them are actually going to be more blush toppers. Am I ever going to use this orange shade on myself again? Probably not. Probably not. So that is something to consider when you're buying this palette. Like I said, if you're a makeup artist, you're going to get a lot of use out of this. If you are just someone who loves these for personal use, you can still get a ton of use out of this, but there might be shades that you might not reach for. This orange shade, just not for me, but the rest of this palette is so beautiful. Like I said, even though all the highlighters don't work, they will be great toppers. And you can use them to help customize the other blush shades in here as well. And I love how these 5 shades, 2 of them look way, way too deep for me, and I'm able to make them work by using a light hand. And I love how the shades come out. Aside from being incredibly easy to customize, these are also just very long wearing blushes. They play well with all of my other foundations. I haven't found a foundation that these don't look nice on. These also just give a really beautiful radiance to the skin. The formulas that describe themselves as a semi-matte are really more so just going to mimic the finish of the foundation underneath, which I find a lot of matte cream and liquid foundations do. They just tend to mimic what's underneath. But even the shimmer formulas aren't too much. They're just very beautiful and easy to work with, and they just give a soft glow. It's never too much. I did want to do a couple of swatch comparisons with the Face Essentials palette, which is the only other one I have, because I do have 4 blushes over here as well. So I was able to get a few similarities with the blushes. These are definitely more easy neutral shades, holding them up side by side. Obviously this one has foundation, concealer, and things like that. And this palette definitely does experiment and go into some of those deeper, brighter, fun shades. So this palette is definitely a little, like I said, brighter and more fun with the shade range. So I don't really feel like I have a lot of overlap. I love reaching for this because it is so easy, just because it has everything I want right there in the palette. But I think this is a nice companion for when these blushes aren't what I'm looking for, but I still have this, because I really do think they sort of extended my Makeup Forever cream blush collection. I think this palette is fantastic. Is it expensive? Yes. And if you're not going to reach for something like this regularly, then I would definitely pass on it. But if you love having something like this, if you love having options, if you love cream products especially, I think this is fantastic, and it really is truly one of my very, very favorite cream blush formulas, just for how easy these are to work with and customize. But they just never give me an issue. They never react badly with any of my other foundations. They never look cakey. They never cling to anything. They just always blend out so beautifully and do exactly what I want them to do. So I think it's obvious I really love this palette. That being said, it is very pricey. So if you are wanting to purchase this one, I will leave the link down below to the Makeup Forever sale so you can take advantage of that and get 25% off of this, because that would be amazing, especially on such a new product. But overall, I think this is fantastic. I definitely would recommend this if you love cream blushes and you just love very quick, easy makeup for every day. This could be a fantastic staple if you're just looking to add some new blush shades to your collection. So I do think it's fantastic, and I just love these Makeup Forever palettes. But that is it for me today. I really hope the cheek swatches were helpful. I definitely did struggle with how to show you the highlights, but I did do my best, so I hope that was helpful also. But that is it for me today. Let me know all of your thoughts down below. Let me know if you're planning to pick up this palette. Did you already? Are you waiting for a sale? Just let me know all of your thoughts. I love hearing from you guys so, so much. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!